bring to mind the essence of what we discussed the last couple of times, which is the way that we tend to judge ourselves. And by judge ourselves, I mean of various world islands, look at other world islands and have ideas about how they should be and how they're wrong. And then remember that all of those components of us, are each doing the best that they can in every moment. We were trying to get the essence of this by thinking about how we would relate to a baby or a toddler, an entity that really doesn't know better, that's doing its best in its developmental journey. And for this meditation, I also want you to consider the innocence, really innate innocence in every part of us. So keep this in mind as we start dropping into our bodies. We start breathing and nourishing every aspect of our being, the entire space, every tissue in our body. Just breathing and relaxing into shared presence. For me, what sometimes happens when I drop in to myself this way is something comes up and there's some grievance, some regret, something that I think I haven't done right. And without taking away from this content, maybe I did somehow do something out of alignment, that maybe there is something I want to fix. I want to take the perspective that this is all based in my innocent goodness. Every part of me is doing the best that it can in the circumstances that it meets every moment. There's a way that this is an even deeper, more fundamental perspective or view than the one of gratitude. Because with gratitude, we're still looking for stories, we're still looking for a reason to be grateful. But innocent goodness is the foundation of our being. It's below the level of story. In fact, the easiest way to get into contact with the sense of innocent goodness is to take all the stories away, is to let go of all the perspectives based in the past and projecting towards the future. If when you hear the term innocent goodness, it correlates to an experience in your body, you can find the simple okayness of being. Place where neither you nor anyone else has ever done anything wrong. All there is a moment to moment unfolding. And as you find this quality of innocent goodness, you breathing to it, see if you can find a space in awareness throughout the body mind that coheres around it, that agrees with this perspective, agrees to just allow innocent goodness, be innocent goodness. If there's any emotion, of course, just welcome it into the same coherence, allow it to be. Often hold a lot of blame and judgment and shame in ourselves, and this is a great practice, a great space to allow those to dissolve and to uncover whatever emotion lies underneath. And as you breathe, consider from this perspective, from this feeling of innocent goodness, every part of the body, every tissue, every submind deserves nourishment, deserves to be included. Even if there's a story that comes up why some part doesn't deserve to be included or is wrong, include and nourish that too. Just breathing to everything in the simplest way. Now you can either stay with this, or if it feels easeful, you can expand this feel, this invitation to rest in innocent goodness to all of the other participants of our call. The more we can see in ourselves all we ever had were good intentions, that we were all always doing the best that we could, the more we can directly see it in every other being. And of course, vice versa. The more we can see it at other people, the more we can unstick particular places in us that we think are especially culpable or especially bad. Here you can also bring in a quality of forgiveness. You can forgive yourselves, forgive your peers, forgive the world. It's not about not holding people responsible. It's not about taking accountability. It's first holding this very healthy perspective. Take away the charge and the tension and stay with the simple truth that remains. And even without opening your eyes, you perhaps can notice that just by virtue of all of us doing this here together, there's a lightness to a shared field, the warmth, charitable attitude, ease and acceptance. Now, I want to offer one more thing while we're in this beautiful space. Feel free to continue basking in the innocent goodness. So if you're still facing some challenge, stay with it. I want to offer the opportunity to go a little deeper, finding something in your history that's unresolved. Find some experience you really had a hard time with, the way you acted, the way you showed up. Do you really think you're evil? See those behaviors, those intentions as well from the lens of innocent goodness. Consider that even if it turned out to be painful, if you consider it to be a mistake, at the time you did what you thought was best. By definition, you could have not done anything better. It is only post hoc and based on very partializing perspective that we decide that we were bad. Should have known better. If it helps, you can again bring up a baby and look at the baby and see how it feels to say to the baby, you should have known better. For me, it brings up a giant smile about the absurdity. You should have known better. I should have known better. All of the qualities that we've cultivated here, forgiveness and softness, basing in innocent goodness, bring into those intentions. Bring also to the you should have known better perspectives. And again, this is not about not learning, not understanding ourselves better, not resolving conflict. It's about the come from. Let's take another minute to breathe in a nourishing breath again. Touching every cell in our body. Making a wish for the integration, all of the positive results of this practice, every aspect of our being. Every part of us that's ready to let go of grievances and pain at agitation, hate. What would life be like if we never expected anyone to be different, or never generated anger towards them? When you're ready, open your eyes and come join us. Enjoying a little stretch, opening up any other place that wants to feel what we've cultivated. Mm. So this meditation, aside from its incredible use in my mind in reclaiming old parts and letting go of old tensions, is also a bit of a taste of what I mean by the title of the chapter. Awakening is the ultimate active rest, a rest in this very deeply embedded, effortlessly arising knowledge, the innocence of all things, even the innocent goodness. And then without the baggage of accusations and anger and hate and blame, the conflicts that we do inevitably run into, even with our innocent goodness, we have a much easier time resolving. I'd love to hear how this was for you. If anyone has any comment or anything to share about the process you've gone through. Going once.
I found it helpful when you introduced, right after, shortly after you introduced the notion of innocent goodness. You said that it's the level below the story, and that kind of helped me settle into, I guess, fundamental consciousness. So it became clear what you mean, and I could also relate the term innocent goodness just through the semantics that arise in my mind to a certain quality of experience that I'm familiar with. So, yeah, that was my experience.
Beautiful. Okay.
It felt playful.
Mm-hmm.
So without or when loosening the story, it just feels like trying one thing and seeing what happens, and then trying another thing and seeing what happens and what it feels like. And that's what play feels like to me. And I very much liked the prompt to kind of breathe into the field of the group. Yeah.
Excellent.
There's an interesting energy that I noticed generated when you prompted us to imagine, how did you put it? Like telling a little baby that you should have known better. Kind of like this just shock of incongruity. And so that's interesting. Like, where did that energy come from? Like, what aspect of myself was like there's this not agitation, but like not kind of like disbelief, and very different from the kind of the, like you said, the active resting energy of the rest of it. And it feels like that would be interesting to explore more deeply, kind of like that boundary transition maybe.
Anything else before we move on?
Yeah, Jonathan talking about the prompt with telling the baby it should have known better prompted my memory of that experience because I felt like a big baby just brabbling to a baby, like ba 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 ba, you know, you should have known better, ba 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 ba. And yeah, it was very, I don't know, freeing. Yeah.
As you say this, what comes up for me is a mother working two jobs and is hungry and tired, and the baby's fussy. She's like, va, 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 va. And it also makes it so much easier to have compassion for her, for every part of us that is overworked and tired and agitated and upset, just holding it with the same kindness, the same attitude of innocent goodness. So the last chapter was quite massive. We covered most of the essential parts of it. We got the main messages across. I wanted to leave some space for any questions, any other explorations we didn't get to. It's one of the longest ones. Talking about world islands and how they form, how it can be skillful to spin them down, have them rest into emptiness or fundamental consciousness or innocent goodness.
I'm wondering about, oh, sorry.
Oh, go ahead.
Um, I'm wondering about, so when you spin deeper into samsara, so there's more layers, and is it always the case that the experience becomes kind of less rich than um, if you are closer to fundamental consciousness?
Well, what's your experience?
Well, it's sort of like it seems to have this quality when you're deep into samsara that, first of all, there's of course tension and suffering. So, and like I find myself always like searching for something that is deep or rich or whatever it is that like the agenda is, but it's like never really there, I guess. Um, because I suppose um, it's like you say with the constructive lens that excludes everything else, limits
Mm-hmm.
what is available to the awareness at that time.
Yeah. So where does the question come from?
I don't know, just like to confirm or just yeah, to hear your opinion about this. Sort of like
My,
to um, compare my experience to yours, to what
my
you think.
opinion is that you understand this perfectly.
Okay, great,
And,
thanks.
and I'm getting a sense that you also see it in your experience. And
Yeah.
and while we are talking about this, I would recommend, even if it's something that you really, really want, crave, and spin very deep into, get the thing. At least notice, even if you don't feel like you have a choice while you're doing it, that when you do get it, you have the permission, give yourself the permission to relax some of the effort towards it. So that you can have a rich experience with the thing that you wanted, the thing that you're getting.
Yeah, sort of like using the layers, the samsara, as a tool to get to the point you want to get to, but then once it's done its job, letting it go.
Yep.
Yeah.
We're also talking about how every time that there's a should come up in our mind, there's always two or more competing desires, or more competing wants. Sophie posted a beautiful exploration of that in chat. It's exactly how this sort of thing should be done. Breaking down the apparent disagreements at the top layer of the most polarization and disagreement into more fundamental agreements, into a question of how we can get what everyone wants. I'm gladdened by the lack of questions and the implication of great clarity that everyone is sharing. Okay. If no more questions or comments, then let's move on. So I want to show you this image chapter we're talking about today. And I'll say this is a sketch, but there's something that happens in direct experience that is very much like this. You can feel like being trapped inside of one's personality. The personality is this agglomeration, this condensing of concepts and agendas and perspectives and judgments into a straitjacket. I use the term straitjacket because of all the tension that it creates. It's like being squeezed very deep inside a conceptual forest. And when stepping out of this, and it's not necessarily a binary move, but at the end of it, it can feel like a completely new way of perceiving, where instead of being locked up inside the mind, inside of the small self or personality, subtle self, you could also say, it's like the bubble of existence expands. Not the immediate content, but what we're willing to take in and be with as if it's closer to us, as if it's part of us, as if it's occurring inside a bubble of being. And as we go deeper into it, even you could say an infinite field of being. So that even this bubble in the second sketch dissolves. And there's just this, just what arises. But for purposes, for this exploration, I want us to consider what it is that happens with this. The Buddha used the words vexation, or tight-knit, tangled web of confusion, of agitation. And all these concepts are. And when I say concepts, I use it as a category inside. We put in agendas and identities and plans and so on. What are these concepts? And here I'm letting go of the framing we used in the last times about world models and world islands and so on. We just lump them all into this web of tangled concepts. So I want to use a developmental lens for this perspective. Major reason why I don't ever really like the term awakening is that it points into something that might even feel mystical or special in some way that takes it outside of the bound of scientific exploration or of mechanisms. And what I want to describe to you about concepts is very much rooted in developmental psychology, something that's very easy to understand. Before going into it, from this perspective, what is it that comes up for you? What are concepts? Why do we have them? Why do we use them? Never mind the attachment. What is the purpose?
Save energy.
How?
We perceive things, and there's a lot going on, and we try to filter between what is something and what isn't. And that creates a concept, a definition, a boundary around a thing.
Mm-hmm.
And then we just pay attention to that because we say, oh, that's the important part. I can not care about the rest, and I can save some energy and go to sleep. Yeah.
Perfect. Anything else? Any other reflections on this?
As I said, we needed to just exist. I feel hungry, so I'm looking for something to eat. And if I don't have a concept, not of hunger and not of food, then I'm lost. I don't know how to just exist in this world.
So here we say repository of knowledge. No. Then tell me.
I don't know if it's positive. It's too high of a concept. Just knowing to get around the basic functionality of living.
Sophie?
I think it's like I studied classical music, and I remember there was this thing that you need to be very, very good at the very structured classical music before you can start breaking it into contemporary music, and then just kind of like get outside the box. And the same was with art. It's just like, if I start splashing something, it's not going to be a Picasso if I have no concept of maybe something that needs to be learned before you can completely break it. So in that way, I was thinking that in evolution, when we're growing, like we're like smaller, say like an actual small baby, we need to form some ideas of who we are. Like, okay, this is an idea of me, it's an idea of mom and dad, or something that is useful to almost develop to be a love for interactions. Like if you would, and then, and I think that's the like the evolutionary reason why, like also like the mental structures are formed that way in some way, and they are like not the most efficient way necessarily, but the ones that we need to somehow have an understanding of. And then we can completely like decide to open up while still keeping the understanding of those structures. That's my thoughts. Yeah.
Beautiful metaphor. I haven't thought of that, but it works just profoundly well. Thank you. The way that I like to think about concepts sometimes is that they are averaged notions of the past. Our concepts and the models embedded in them are a collection of all of the experience that we've had relevant to that area of the concept, with different weights given to different experiences and forming the final product. So as a simple example, if I say dog, whatever image or set of images that flashes into awareness is of course very different for each and every one of us, and depending on the dogs that we've seen. And probably overweighted the dog that we had in our home growing up, or that we saw more of in the neighborhood or in our favorite movie and so on. But it's also probably not exactly that dog. It has some other qualities, there's some fuzziness about the exact color and shape. And we can generalize this to everything. Every concept that comes to mind about how the world works, about our job, about the person in front of us, is this averaged notion of how they tend to be. And of course, if we hold it as part of the straitjacket, and as you all know, it becomes a filter, and it can prevent us from seeing anything that's, let's say, more than a standard deviation outside of the model. If a person is behaving in a way that's so outside of the model, we will not see it, we will not interpret it. And the more we're tight, the more we're tight with the concept. For example, if we're with a partner and we're triggered, the more compressed and unlikely we are to see even a small deviation from what we expect to see. So if we're angry with a person, if we're completely missing even the tiniest sliver of their innocent goodness, even if they soften, try to come towards us, to come deeper into connection, we're very likely to miss it, to see it as another move in the war that's mostly happening in our minds. Not to say that a partner is not also waging a war in their minds, but certainly we are waging a war in our mind, in the concepts, in the straitjacket of concepts that we are projecting on the situation and feeding ourselves, right? All of this slop generated internally, missing the actual reality that's being broadcast through the senses. Now, developmentally speaking, again, this is the best that we can do until we learn better. Because especially as we're born and grow up, there's so much information that we have to take in. So many decisions, there's so much learning, even just about the fundamental mechanics of how to move myself, where the body begins and ends, what is food and what is poison, who's my caretaker and who's the enemy, who should I stay away from. And that system, unless we know how to evolve it, then starts being used for things that it was never fully meant to entertain, like global world models and financial systems, ways of organizing large masses of humans into coherent structures. And you know, I want to take back never meant to engage in. Certainly it can, and even later on, those concepts are useful. But I will say we're stretching them to the limit, making for a lot of misery in the process. If we don't have the awareness that we can go beyond the concepts, and certainly that we don't have to hold them so strongly. And we explore why we hold them so strongly in many other chapters in the book. In just the last couple of sessions, we were speaking about agitation or pain or emotion at the bottom of any such loop. But the thing that I want to point to here is more the way to exist without needing to rely on concepts. There's two things that I want to do. One is more of a deepening of the exploration, and then the other is more experiential. Let's see what we begin with. Let's start with some more of the intellectual part. So I want to ask this. Can you conceive of something like I was showing in the sketch? Pull it up again. Where we go about our lives and we see a person. We have no preconceived notion about them. We barely even remember that we know this person. We might not even fully entertain some notion of us being humans in the world. We're propelled by something that's a deeper functionality, programming that's not just the intuitive and innate, but one that's been shaped by all of the explorations that we've had throughout our lives, including what we've done with concepts, but without relying on concepts. And we meet this person because we're not encumbered by concepts. We have a warm glow or smile. We just see their innocent goodness. And what they say to us in the moment might shape itself into a particular concept. See, there's a church and a family and some time with this person. But they come up not because of this is what we remember about this person. This is what we're attached to seeing them as because of some agenda we have for them. Maybe they're my employee. Maybe they're someone I want something from. But much more because of what happens between us naturally based on the conversation, based on the encounter. Now, this is not the easiest to describe with words because, of course, if a person is my employee and I'm seeing them, it's very natural that before they even say a word, we think about our shared project. I don't want to take it all the way into some abiding and complete emptiness and contextlessness. See if you can use my words more as a pointer towards what's possible. It's moving around the world with less of a surety of what it is that's happening in every moment, based on our knowledge stemming from a past, and without so many agendas, where the past necessarily implies, it forcefully means that something needs to happen now towards some future that we might not even be conscious of. It's just baked into the concept.
Though, could
Yeah.
I ask you to repeat it because I somehow feel like I have a Stack Overflow in my mind.
Thank you for asking. So let's move this halfway into the experiential. So I want you all to take a look at the screen, and you can take a wide view of everyone. Find one person to look at. And in similar fashion to what we played with the last couple of times, consider what the baggage you're bringing into the situation is. Who is this person? What am I projecting on them? What have they said before that's informing my model? And see if you can find through the pathways that we know from emptiness practice, from the innocent goodness that we just did, applied both to us and to perception. See if you can let go of anything but the freshly arising sensory phenomena. For me, what tends to happen is I notice much more of the micro expressions and micro movements, otherwise chunked into layers of information integration, all the concepts that already are projected with some idea of how this person is. Suddenly they just open up and have a more direct and immediate experience. See if you can bring up the quality of innocent goodness or the basic joy and appreciation being in the company of some other person, of another entity. Just here with us and possibly also looking at us with the same intention. Not compressing us with their minds into some concept, into some agenda, into an object to use for whatever purpose they came into the connection with us before we even met. Beautiful. And we may notice that as we perceive this way, with less of the overlay, there's a bubbling up of potentiality. As we're not on the rail tracks of a very entrenched past, telling us through meaning into an almost determined future, suddenly the range of possibilities, the degrees of freedom we have in every moment expand. This person or this group were in front of you right now. There were no rules, no expectations, no ideas about how it used to be or what can go wrong. What would you do just through the natural joy of existence? How would you play? How would you poke them? How would you dance with them? What would you say? What could we do together? What beautiful relational dances could we make? Of course, informed by what we know, informed by the wisdom, by the knowledge that then becomes bunched up into concepts, but without being coerced into them. So we're in this beautiful space here, and we are going to go deeper, but I want to see if there are any questions or comments. I want to understand this deeply. Yes, Moshe.
As when we interact, let's say, with other people, as this person is closer to us, or in general, if we deal with different kind of subject or issues, as the issue is more important, more critical, and more personal, naturally, emotion increases, expectation amplifies, and with that, naturally, the concept that comes along with it. And I think the issue is that there is a value in the concept, but I think the underline for me is that who is controlling whom? Is the concept ultimately controls us? Yes, or we are controlling the concept? Can we use the concept in a loving, caring way? And in a way that it is serving us in some way without the attachment that associated with that, and see the value, yet at the same time rather than seeing it as a risky opportunity, seeing the possibilities, as you mentioned, and really the opportunities to bring greater level of the concept of compassion and love, yes, to the equation.
First of all, you say it's naturally what happens. It's naturally what happens. And it's critically important for the sake of this developmental process to understand that it's natural from this level, as long as we don't know better. It's like saying it's natural for a baby to cry if it doesn't get the ice cream. But if we see an adult and they cry because they didn't get the ice cream, we'd be like, oh, okay. And I don't want to say this to take away the permission from any adults to cry when ice creams are not found. It's just a metaphor. And I want to invite you to the possibility that when we loosen the conceptual holding and the expectation, you don't need to have a concept of compassion. It's what naturally exists and arises. And then even if we bring up the concepts that regulate or inform our interaction from the deeper or wider come from, they'll be naturally infused by those qualities. I'm going to say something a little wider before we go into the deeper exploration. I think will help make deeper sense of this. Because I think what I'm saying is not satisfying to you right now. Any other comments before that? Questions?
I just wanted to share that as you were explaining this, I just realized that like it becomes very clear for me what you point to if I think of when I meet someone for the first time, what the experience is like. Because if we're talking about a person and having concepts about a person, at that time, there are no concepts and it's just fresh experience. And you do notice I mean, yeah, provided you don't bring the preconceptions to that situation, if you're relaxed and you just like meet, you're in an open mood and you meet someone for the first time, then the experience becomes like what you described. I think. Would you say that that makes sense?
It does and it doesn't. Because every time we meet a person, just based on the shape of their faces, the color of their skin, the clothes they wear, their posture, their own personalities, as subtly detected in how they're showing up in every moment, the micro expressions, the tone of voice, everything informs and triggers past ideas, past concepts about what this person is. So I look at you and you have this very long beard. I'm like, oh, what is true about all of the people that I've seen in the past that have a long beard? Right? I'm making this into an exaggeration, or like even like a very simple thing, but you get what I'm pointing to.
Yeah. Yeah, I know what you mean. As I was talking, I realized that like there was a kind of a problem with it, but I actually was thinking about an experience where more like, I don't know, like maybe when I was a kid and I didn't really have that much ideas about people. And if I met someone completely new, it would be just like very fresh. And yes, there are things that come up in that experience that are based on the past experiences, but it is not as though I am like I'm coming from the like, oh, that's like who they are. They have this kind of beard, therefore it is that kind of person, therefore I need to act in this way or something like that. But so yeah.
It really depends on how much charge we have about a particular person. If we meet someone that for our entire lives we were trained is the enemy because they have this and that skin type and this and that language, you might even hate them less if you speak to them for a few minutes. You'll have less concepts in the way because you're actually seeing them. And it can be the other way. So there's nothing here that necessarily is a type of progression in terms of more concept, less concept. It really depends on your baggage, on their baggage, and what you're able to generate in your connection in a moment.
Yeah, that's a good point about like talking to them for a little bit and then your preconceptions, like it can become very clear that like, oh, that just doesn't apply here. And it just kind of falls away naturally. Yeah.
I'm noticing an area that feels like an interesting subtle distinction where how often when we meet someone and our gut says move toward or move away from them, and how easy it can be to talk ourselves into like, oh, need to learn more, prejudging them. Um, but it's like this instant reaction. It's non-conceptual, but it happens the same way, or it seems to happen the same way that our concept overlays
Yeah.
are telling us like, oh, someone with a beard, like that, all my past experiences, as opposed to like find it hard to put my finger on what what is the gut actually noticing, because it's clearly not a concept, even though it's then loaded into our consciousness, maybe attached to concepts. Does that make sense?
Yeah. And so remember that I'm using concept as a very high level category. Your gut reaction towards a person can still be informed by the unconscious models, right? All of this average notion that we have about the person. Like, oh my God, he's the person again who speaks that language, and I was taught that they're the enemy. They're the people who took that. They're the ones who are responsible for all the problems in our social sphere, right? So you see it and it's like, ugh. And it might not come to mind. Actually, very often the problem is it does not come to mind. It stays in the unconscious realm. You live in the reality of this is the bad thing. This is the source of problems, right? We miss the the story that it comes from, and more importantly, we miss the pain that's underlying all of those layers. That is the fundamental issue.
Well, I think what I'm pointing at is I think we can find a distinction between those unconscious conceptual, like the pattern recognition from the past versus something else the gut is also doing. So a question would be, how often have you talked yourself, or has one talked oneself out of a gut reaction and been glad that realized that your gut was actually wrong?
Uh-huh.
In my experience, my gut is never wrong.
A few things.
So I think I'm saying something slightly different than what you're gesturing toward.
Yeah. So I forgot exactly in what session, what chapter, but we had an exploration around owning our experience, and particularly with the type of person who can be there for us in it and not take it personally. And so when you see a person and you have some gut response, and first of all, own that to yourself. If you can, if the connection allows it, and especially if it does a foundation that exists, or you can create in the moment by saying, hey, something's happening for me in the service of connecting with you. I want to own and out it to you. Right? So you can say, oh, I have a gut feeling. Something doesn't sit right. And then when it's in the shared consciousness, you can then dance with it. You can see what it is. And then it stops being about whether the gut response is wrong or right. Right? Wrong or right is a matter of perspective. If you bring it to awareness and then play with it, then you can have it expand into a greater awareness and have more freedom around what to do with it. And for someone, sometimes you meet someone, and even if you do this process internally, like, oh, it reminds me of the person who did this and that to me before. Or maybe there's nothing. And then you let's say you can trust your gut for something deeper that's happening, not just in the level of the concepts and triggers that you have in the past. But it's important not to make this into something that's foolproof while still trusting yourself. It's a fine line to walk. I'm meeting a person and there's some attraction or some aversion. And whether I choose to go with them or not, to the best of our abilities, it's important not to have like a final idea of, oh, my gut is never wrong. or oh, it means that about them, right? We want to see those things and have the degrees of freedom that are available because we have it in awareness. I think what you're pointing to is something, or like a signal that you've found gives you a deeper truth sometimes than what your mind might think about the person. Like if someone comes in with this incredible opportunity and it checks all the mental boxes, and you're like, here, take all my money, but your gut's like, hey, something's not right here. And in that as well, I would say it's more about integrating all the signals, all of the body, and then head, heart, gut, and the many other subsystems that we have into a decision. Of course, for you, the gut might be more finely tuned. For others, might not be the case. So again, it's a matter of bringing to awareness what our capacities are, what we see in the moment, how much weight we even want to put on the signal, right? Maybe sometimes you meet someone in the street, you have a bad gut reaction, you just move to the other side. Like, who cares? That's not what's important. And covering all of the space just to keep us in the realm of there's no right option here. There's no correct move. And warning us from this is always that, this is never wrong, this is always true, this is the correct signal. Right? We're going towards integrating more, being less reliant on compressed notions. That's the path of development that we're pointing to here. That was a very long answer for me. How's it land?
Yeah, an additional source of information, and looking at how do we weight our sources of information. I find it interesting, holding other people in that sense of like of loving awareness, while also like maintaining my own integrity from a safety standpoint. Like, who do you let in, who do you keep out, and looking at the quality of loving kindness, like and holding some people away.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Continuous exploration and question with no correct answers ever. And it might sound grim, but when we fully drop in, and we'll do that more soon, it's just one more thing I want to convey before. When we fully drop into the space of no correct answer, it tends to bring up a giant smile on our faces. And we'll see how. So, lastly, conceptually, intellectually, I want to say, in the modern Western developmental psychology lineage, I might even say, it's really growing to be beautiful these days, in my opinion. Over the past year, I've particularly been interested in the stages model. It can be found in stagesinternational.com. But in many of the other, let's say, traditions or ways of thinking about this, there's often distinction of 4 different tiers of development. The concrete or gross, it's the sort of thing that you can put a fence around. We all live in this country. It can also be we are all adherents of Jesus Christ, the one true God. Then there's the subtle. The subtle is the realm of the mind as it builds concepts and abstract notions and makes plans about the future. It becomes an expert in things. It knows about the world and its functions. It has all sorts of strategies for how to meet people, how to be in relationship. And it can also allow for collectives that are in more nuanced context than we're all Christians. For example, we all like playing this video game online, or we all believe that this is the correct mechanism of social order, particular ideology. And we can connect to various subtle collectives this way. And then the next one, the one that I want to focus on, is often called Causal, or in the stages lineage, Metaware, meta-aware. Later on, we also have unified or non-dual, but we're gonna let this go for now. What I like about the name Causal for this tier is that it, in some sense, it completely flips the script. If in an interaction, we tend to have in mind the context of what happened in the past that led us to this moment, what is the nature of our engagement in terms of some mutual enterprise, what do our roles mean in the moment that we can say or not say, what's the future that we're going towards, what are the set of traumas in my own personal history and narrative that's constraining my experience this way, that's informing how I'm showing up. For example, if I'm, see a good example. If I'm working in a company and my CEO reminds me of my dad, who was a little stern and always inhibited my capacity to really step up and take responsibility for something, to be my own agent in the world. And I'm projecting it on the CEO. Even if I want to step out of this role, I might speak to, oh, this is what happened to me with my dad, and I'm projecting it on you. So much of the same process that we did discuss is useful to bring into awareness. And therefore, I have a hard time taking more responsibility, even though I know you, the actual boss, not my dad, wants me to take it, and so on. There's a whole set of stories and causes and conditions. And what is it that led us here? From the causal or the Metaware tier, we move all of those concepts aside, right? And when I say move, there's a movement that we learn to do, but ultimately it starts becoming the foundation of experience on top of which the subtle can arise. That becomes the basic, sort of like the sketch that I was showing earlier. And we lose any curiosity or question about what is it that in the past led to this moment? What is it that I need to do that is congruent with the narrative informed by my history and my traumas and what's expected of me by society and what's right here between us, me and the boss, or any circumstance? And we go directly into what's causing any feeling, any contraction, anything arising in the present moment in the relational field, in the way that awareness is shaped in the moment. And we do so from a foundation, and we'll play with this in a moment, of a direct recognition of what you could call timelessness or the eternal moment. We've played with this before, coming very deeply into the recognition that past and future are subtle concepts in our minds that we're projecting onto reality and filter our actions and perceptions through. So that falls away or loosens even a little bit. And then if I'm meeting with this boss and I have some tension in my body, it's just fear or it's just agitation. And I care not at all about the story of why it's there or where it's going or what it means or what my therapist told me. It's just about, oh, there's some fear. And I can feel it in a moment. I can also share it with the person if appropriate. Maybe it's still not appropriate with the CEO of the company. Maybe it is. But I'm completely in a space of there's a force. There is a particular way that through the meta-awareness that I've cultivated, I can see is a contraction, is a tangle in the shape of awareness, and I can be with it directly in a way that tends to just relax it in the moment or uncover the deeper truth that's there in the moment. In my interaction, in this imagined interaction with the CEO, the deeper truth that, of course, still can come up as words, as concepts, might be that I'm using all of those layers of narrative and trauma and my dad and the memory and the one time that my dad hit me and the trauma that I have from there, all of that straitjacket of concepts are pushing on a simple desire to be like the CEO, or because I have an attraction to him, or because I do want to step up and do the thing, but I have fear of rejection. And so instead of peeling off all of those layers and wading through the swamp of concepts, there's just the direct recognition of, oh, I see the urge of wanting to step up, and I see the fear of the rejection that might happen. And then we do the same trick that we know, which is, how can I allow the attraction to the person while holding the fear of rejection in the same conscious space, to the point where they find the deeper underlying motif, or the place where they all agree. And what tends to happen is this all dissolves into truth, joy, and love on the foundation of the same innocent goodness that we've started cultivating earlier today. No need for stories, no need for all sorts of ideas about what should be. Just what is right now. What is really causing all of the subtle minds flailing around in this moment. And of course, the deeper we go into this Metaware tier, the deeper we go into this way of being, and it, of course, aligns very deeply with all of the conceptions of fundamental consciousness that we've described right now. I'm not going to fully go into how it matches, but just for a sense of it. The more we go into it, the more the mind learns that it does not need all this conceptual baggage, that it does not need the straitjacket. And we go deeper and deeper into a letting go of all of the tension, all of the gripping and squeezing that the concepts continually apply on our bodies and minds. Any quick questions on this before we go into the experiential exploration? Yeah.
I think I really understand, except that and this might still be my resistance to this, and especially every time you say there is no right or wrong, I think something just gets triggered, because I feel that there are parts of me that have really learned through making mistakes that there are some things that I don't like. So in some ways, the thought is there in a situation you could make the wrong choice and you could go there. So it kind of has built evidence of situations that are similar to painful situations. And it's like, oh, I don't want to discard them because that would be wrong. And I feel like kind of like I shouldn't discard them, of course, like there's still information, but there is some resistance to not calling them. It could lead to a wrong choice, because if I just do something that gives me pain, I don't know how else to label it. I cannot be like, oh, that was the right choice. You just knowingly make another mistake or something like that. Or
So I think you've read, I know that you've read the Good and Bad chapter that we're going to discuss in about a month. Many years ago already, you gave me feedback on it, I think. Yeah. And
probably
so
something I'm stuck in. I know I'm stuck in this.
From the same perspective, I want to ask you, wrong for what? You made a wrong decision. Wrong for what?
Because it goes against my preference to not experience pain.
It goes against your preference not to experience pain. Do you never want to experience pain? What would happen if you never experienced pain?
I feel like ideally I would be happier. I understand that the answer is like, okay, you need pain to grow or to learn or something. But if I could if I could learn without the pain, I would just take it.
Yeah, I recommend Googling people with the rare disease of not feeling pain and how they live their lives. Yeah.
But yes,
So
okay,
I don't
yeah,
want to
okay,
go.
yeah.
I don't want to go too deep into this, but I do want to encourage you to follow this rabbit hole of wrong for what. And then if you're like, oh, my preference, okay, what does my preference rely on? Oh, my desire to this and that. What does that rely on? What is that good for? Go all the way through. And just also as a bookmark, because I want to keep going. I'm sure many of you know the story of it's a farmer or a master, and he has a son, and the son is very successful, and people come to him and tell, oh, it's so good that your son is successful. And then the son falls off the horse and breaks the leg, and everyone comes and it's like, oh, it's so bad that your son breaks the leg. And the guy's like, oh, maybe. And then there's a war, and everyone comes, oh my God, it's so lucky for you that it's so good for you that your son broke the leg. And like, oh, maybe. So good for what? And based on what perspective? And based on what future did then happen? And then colors the past with good or bad. It's a never-ending endeavor to slot all of our experience into good or bad or wrong or right. And there's a way, and I'm going to make a bit of a harsh claim, that endeavor for an adult or adult-bodied person is the equivalent of a pacifier for a baby. Wanting to slot more and more of my ideas of what happened in my idea of a past into my ideas of the boxes of good is my attempt at soothing myself. That's all it does. And like a baby, initially, I need to learn to self-soothe. But then we find more developed ways of being in the world from a place of comfort and love and joy that does not depend on those boxes.
Okay, thank you, Doris. This is a hard one for me to understand. I hope in 2 years I'm not asking you the same question, but I won't promise, but I'll try.
You're very, very welcome to continue bringing this up. Very welcome to continue bringing this up. This is a lot of the essence of all of this. And that's why sometimes they say that the jump from the subtle tier to the Metaware tier is the hardest. It's the greatest shift, and particularly also because our society has not done so collectively. It's so removed from how we know how to experience life. And everything around us is trying to play those conceptual good and bad games and list us in the game, use one another to reflect to us the goodness that we are. It's like it's so baked into everything that we do, the habits of personal and communal and societal relationships. So be very, very easy on yourself. I said something very harsh, and I see that it's hitting, but hold that in a wide field of compassion and self-love and ease. Yeah, Alex.
I just wanted to clarify. So, like in this system that you just explained, you said I think you said that there was 4 tiers, but I only remember you describing 3. Am I missing something or?
Gross, subtle, causal, non-dual.
Right.
Yeah.
So, and non-dual is the same as this meta.
As what? No. Causal aligns with Metaware, and non-dual sometimes with unified. This is so beyond right now.
So
I don't even want to
it's
go
something
into.
that you didn't go into. Okay. So
Yeah.
that
Yeah.
makes sense. Thanks.
Okay, let's take another very few minutes. We're getting towards the end, so feel free to jump out as we do this. Let's have a little taste of this, and yeah, and we'll do it again next time as well. Okay, so settle in again, whatever way that you know to generate some ease and comfort, present moment, perception, coming here into the here and now. Take a moment to apply, take a moment to land back. Of course, if there's still agitation, there's still fear, there's any impact of what we've talked about, allow it to be there. We don't want to push it away. And come into contact with that perception you already have some of the signature of anything we call past, future, and even present moment being mental projections. I recommend doing that with eyes open, gazing into infinity, allowing the eyes just to be soft, not focusing on anything in particular. It's resting inside forgot the English term. Let's go with the eye chamber. Let them rest back and down. Just relax. As you loosen any sense of past and future, see from the recognition of the unfindability of the space, if that's available to you, unfindability of the self, I'm sorry. Insubstantiality of anything we call self. If we can also see the insubstantiality of a present moment that the self is creating. And it's not to say anything disappears, we will still experience. But all experience, all sensations, all perceptions just arise on the foundation of this timelessness, just happening. Just happening. And since we know that everything we call the past is an echo in our mind, compressed average notion, we can come to face the perspective, or dare I say the truth, that we have no idea what the limits of what can happen right now are. Sure, we have bounds on our models, we have predictions, we know standard deviations, we know what's likely and not unlikely. But if we really look deep enough down the chain of priors, from this perception of timelessness, eternal moment, we can see, we can start to sense that there is no founded prior. All of the priors that we have, all of the models that we have are interconnected, are circular. There is no fundamental anchoring truth for them. And therefore, there's no actual bound to our model. Anything can happen at any moment. It will be a surprise to the model, but it will not ultimately be a surprise. So with eyes open, if that's possible for you, I want you to gaze around, still entertaining this timeless stillness. And really come to face or entertain this notion that you have no idea. What is this? What is happening right now? Now, our bodies still work, our senses still work. They're still regulating themselves. There's still homeostasis. Breath is still going, the heart is still beating. And it might be scary to pursue this way, even to dip a tiny toe into this space. I invite you to see if this lack of knowing, this foreign space, can be exciting, can be exhilarating. All of the possibilities, and with the lack of even some of the conceptual overlay, there opens up a sense of choice. From the greater space of possibilities that exist, what could I do? What would be joyful? What would be beautiful? If everything can happen, and I get to play a part in it, why would I ever choose anything but being joyful? Can I choose to be joyful? My essence is innocent goodness. How can I best express it in the world? You're finding yourself pulled into concepts, to attempts to figure this out. The last move I invite you into is just to enjoy the coherence of the space. Some of the partialization goes away with the letting go of concepts. Our entire being comes into deeper contact with itself. It's a natural coherence. You'll also notice we're drawn to like a moth to flame. Notice the coherence, the fineness of the space, higher resolution of perception. Let it saturate your bodies and minds. As we go towards the end of this experience, I want you to remember that this way of being is not more true or correct. And when we later find ourselves back into the conceptual overlay, we don't want to push against it. We don't want to beat ourselves over the head because we can't do this, or at least not as profoundly as you might have access to now. We're still all doing our best. Let's bring this to a close. Take a shared last breath together. Be gentle with yourself when we end. See if you can bring back the world a little more slowly than usual. Pick it up again step by step. If anyone for any reason needs support after this, then message me on WhatsApp. I want to call with you. If not, I'll see you all, one-on-ones, or in 2 weeks will be our next session. Next week I'm going away on retreat. The book club document has all the dates for the next month and so. And see you all soon.